Hi guys, welcome to episode 16? Yes, I was right. It is episode 16, and we're talking about how to draw props and machinery. Now that we've drawn humans and learned how to draw humans, and now that we've learned how to draw animals and you know everything about it, it's time to learn how to draw everything else. So in this discussion, in this lecture, we are going to be talking about drawing specifically props, not as much machinery, but it does apply to machinery. So I have brought a few things. I've brought a fake candle. I've brought a kitchen chopper thing. And I've brought a shoe. We're going to talk about how to practice your drawing this week and how to draw props. So let's begin. Let's start out with this candle first. Alright, what you want to do is you want to gather a prop or something that you have, and then you want to draw it. So we're going to draw this right now. Once again, remember we break things into simple shapes. So this is basically a rectangle, a long rectangle here, kind of an oval here. At least from where I'm seeing it, from where you're seeing it, you might actually be seeing an entirely different shape. Okay, you can also add shading too if you feel so inclined. There's a lot of reflections and stuff on this that would be very good practice. Alright, but once you're happy with that, you feel like you spent enough time on that, you know what you got to do at this point? Turn it around, draw it at a different angle. Do-do-do. Okay, so we're going to draw it like this. Remember, once again, simple shapes. I will say, drawing things in real life is a lot more difficult than drawing them from pictures, because it's hard to nail down the 3D shape. Whereas if it's flat, you can totally tell where the line work goes and stuff, but here you're actually just eyeballing it straight on. And it's a really good practice, and that's why lots of people want you to draw from life. Okay, and then once you're happy with that, do it at a different angle. Okay, draw it from that angle. Alright, and I'm just doing this really quick. You'll probably want to spend more time on it than what I'm spending. If I spent as much time as we needed, you would be bored out of your mind. So we're just being quick. But you get the idea, right? Yes, you do. Alright, draw it in every possible angle that you can. Alright, when you're done with that prop, get a new prop. Alright, we have our shoe. It looks like it's one long oval or rectangle. curves around like this. Okay, and you could spend forever on the laces or whatever, which we're not going to do. You get the idea. And then once you've fleshed this out all nice, draw it at another angle. Okay, this is basically your homework. I want you to gather props around your house, and I want you to draw them in all different positions. Okay? This is the best way to get better at drawing, is to practice drawing this kind of thing. Okay? Ooh, there we go. So that is our lecture today. I would highly recommend you do not just simple things like candles and shoes, but also like the machinery that you have in the kitchen and cars that are in the driveway outside and things like that. Right. Oh. Today we're going to be drawing an X-Wing from Star Wars. It's on your drawing sheet. This is a little hard to tell because my printer was running out of ink, but you can kind of see the breakdown. This one's going to be a little bit tricky because it's more rectangles and more perspective, and we haven't worked on that very much, so this is going to be a really good one to practice if you want to get better. You can go ahead and follow along on the sheet that I pulled up below. Let's go. Okay, let's talk about this X-Wing. Check it out. It's pretty fancy. It's pretty complex, and there's lots of things with perspective, and there's lots of things with planes, and there's cylinders, and as you can see, you know, these are technically parallel, but because they're on perspective, they're kind of pointing outwards from each other, and it's just kind of a big, hairy thing, but very, very, very cool, and really good practice, too. So why don't we get started? If we take a look at this, you'll want to turn your page sideways. So let's flip our canvas. Here we are. Okay, now that we have a flipped canvas, check out how close the nose of this plane goes to the edge of the page. Why don't you just draw a little dot right there to where it is on the page. Now, if you take a look, this is actually just one really skinny oval, all right? And it would probably go off the page if you drew all of it. So we're going to experiment. We're going to have you draw a long oval that goes off the page, the corner, which is right here. Okay, and I think the half of the oval is about right here. Okay, this is where the nose ends. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, machinery and vehicles and stuff are both easier than humans and they're harder than humans. They're easier in the way that humans, like you have your arm has to be a certain place, and you can't have your arm like coming out of your chest, right? It has to be just in one place. Whereas if I drew the wings a little bit further up on this, no one would really be the wiser. No one would know. But it is harder because there's a lot more straight lines, which are harder to draw, I think, and a lot more perspective. So it's easier in some ways, and it's harder in others. Okay, once you have got this kind of missile-looking oval down, okay, see, and this would be the whole oval is right here, and we're not going to draw this other half. Let's move on to these rectangles. And you know what? If you can see on your sheet, what I've done is I've actually drawn an X first. Okay, that's why it's called an X-Wing, because these little guys make an X. What we're going to do is diagonal across your page. Just go ahead and draw that X-wing. Okay. And then across the other half, at a perspective here. And actually, I think I'm drawing that a little bit too high up. So this X is going to be tricky to get. We want it to actually dip below this line. Looks like the X hits about right here. So maybe that would be a good thing before you get too far into drawing the X, is to mark where they cross. Yeah, I definitely got ahead of myself here. Okay. So I feel like this line is right. Let's go ahead. Flip this one right here. Go ahead and mark that. And this one, it looks like it goes about this far up to about here. Okay, let's go ahead and mark that, and then let's draw that X. Okay. Alright, this is basically our stick figure X-wing. Now it is time to flesh these out with a rectangle. So now that we have kind of the skeleton, go ahead and draw this trapezoid. And one thing about it is that since this is at a perspective, your vanishing point's right here, so you can pretend that there's a vanishing point where you draw all these lines out to. Okay. Draw this rectangle. And actually, I'm drawing this rectangle way too fat. Let's thin it up. Let's give it a diet. Okay, once again, this is a lot of straight lines, which are tricky, not gonna lie. Okay, and remember that should be crossing about right where this oval ends. Okay, when you feel like you're happy with this one, let's draw the next one. Check it out. Looks like it just comes in actually a little bit more than this one. This is kind of at this angle, pointing towards the back of the page. This goes in like this. Check out the degree size of that angle. That will help. And if we take a look at this, I drew this one out a little bit too far, so you can go ahead, bring that in. Looks like it's a little bit further out than this one. Okay, hey, this is looking pretty swanky. Okay, when you're happy with these two rectangles, let's move on to maybe this kind of jetpack motor area in here. And it looks like it is just a simple, not cube, a box, a simple box down here. It looks like I'm drawing this way too big. All right, it goes about to here, out to here, out to here. All right, like this. One thing to work on when you're practicing this week is to work on drawing boxes in different shapes. That will help a lot. Okay, so this is kind of the motor area of the jetpack. Let's draw this wedge. If you can see, this wedge is about right here, and you can kind of mark it with a circle first. Then you slope it down like this. This goes across straight. Up and down like this. Over. Here's our wedge. Get it, wedge? Like, he's one of the pilots? Forget it. All right, what are we missing? We're missing a couple of important things. I think these are guns, but I'm not for sure. So we're missing those, and we're missing these cylinders. Let's draw the cylinders first because they're bigger, and we mark them off first with a circle. So check out where those circles are. We're not going to see the fourth one because it's hidden by this guy. We are going to see this top one. It looks like it's about right here. This is a little hard to see. I apologize. I'll zoom in. Let's see this top one. And it goes out to here. Once again, I think I've drawn this box too long. So we're going to erase that. Ugh! Machinery is tricky, guys. There's some people who are so good at drawing it. It's something that I definitely need to practice. So I'll be practicing drawing it along with you. Alright, another thing like this. There's one on this side. It ends about right here. Okay, and check it out. They have an even smaller cylinder that kind of comes out like that. So you can kind of add that to there. Alright, check it out. Let's draw these gunning lines like this. They almost go out as far as the nose. They go out pretty far. Okay. Once again, you almost want to get them parallel to where this nose is pointing. Alright, but not quite. They're splayed out a little bit. And that's because, once again, we're drawing this in perspective. Okay, so you can see this is almost parallel, but not quite. It is out a little bit. And the closer you get to this, the more parallel it's going to be. The further out you get, the more it's splayed is going to be. Okay, so why don't we draw cylinders for that? Looks like they start about halfway on the wing. Down here, they're above the wing, and below the wing, it looks like they're not on the inside. It's exactly the same place that the cylinders are, kind of. Okay. Looks like this gun ends about halfway between this lower wing. You can see. This gun right here. Okay. This one's actually quite a bit closer to the nose. One of the problems is that we drew this wing a little bit further out too much, so we can erase that. See, machinery is kind of tricky. Okay, whew, this is looking pretty fancy. Alright, so now that we have the basic details down, are you happy with your piece? This one is something that will probably take more time to get down and a lot of focus on the details and things like that, because there's a lot of intricacies with machinery and with vehicles that are a little bit difficult to catch. But as long as you have it broken down into simple shapes, that's actually a really good way to start. Alright. Now it's time to add in the details. Hopefully you haven't added in any details. I know it's really tempting to go in and draw the little intricacies before you draw the basic shapes, but you got to get the basic shapes down first. That's really important. Once you have the basic shape down, it's going to be time to flesh it out. We're going to do that right now. pretty dangerous looking. If you want to go into even more detail, you might actually want to go online and look up, Google image search, X-Wing fighter, and find out all the intricacies of the ship. That'd be super cool. You should draw a whole bunch of them. So then you have an X-Wing fleet. Good job. It is time now to move on to the question and answer portion of our show. This is the part where I answer a question. So this is a question that I've been asked before, and it is, how do I draw from life? What are some ways that I can draw from life? And since you're doing that this week, this seems like a very timely question. So the answer is, there are lots of ways you can draw from life. For one thing, always have a sketchbook with you. That's really important. If you have a sketchbook with you, you're ready to, anytime you're like waiting in line or just sitting around or anything, you can just pull out the sketchbook and start drawing the people around you. Okay, so always keep a sketchbook with you. That's number one. Number two is maybe go out and seek opportunities to draw from life. So if there's a car show or something, that might be a good thing to show up to and practice drawing the cars. I know a lot of artists go out and paint the landscapes and do landscape drawing. Just any place where you can take some time and practice drawing. If there's gardens near you or anything, that's a good place to draw. Other good places to draw are, you know, mountains where there's not a lot of people, a lot of tourist traps. So if you live in a city where there's lots of cool buildings and stuff, that's a good place. Another good place is on the train. I've drawn a lot on the train, lots of interesting people on the train that you can caricature. So there's a lot of places. A parks have like cool gizmos and lots of playing kids, and the mall, and basically just anywhere. You don't want to go somewhere where you might get distracted really easily. So I've noticed that drawing from life at family events is really difficult because, you know, they're your family. You're supposed to be talking to them. You're not supposed to be paying attention to your sketchbook. So that's one thing I would recommend for the places where you actually need to be present. Don't bring out the sketchbook. Actually be there and be present. Okay, I hope that helps. Your homework this week: practice drawing household appliances, props, furniture, all different angles. Practice drawing an hour every day. You're the best. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.